morning training acts. Alistair Brownlee announced that he's going to be stepping up to full Ironman. So this run, I thought, hey, let's try getting up on my toes like Alistair Brownlee. And then when I recover after this long run, we're going to go back and we're going to talk about and analyze how I think Alistair's going to do doing sub 4 minute Ks here. But I don't think that's much for him. So, Trainiacs, Alistair Brownlee is... Ooh, I look tiny here. Alistair Brownlee is stepping up to the full Ironman distance after years of dabbling in short course, long course. Now, the question, I think, isn't does he have the stuff to win? We know that he has the stuff to win, but it's will he win? Will he become dominant? Will he win Kona? Or will he be more like a Javier Gomez who struggles at that longer distance and eventually goes back down to shorter distance? Or potentially just gives up the sport, moves on to something else like a Gwen Jorgensen? Because it hasn't been a certainty that every single ITU athlete has stepped up from ITU to half Ironman to full Ironman to be completely dominant in Kona like Jan Frodeno. He's the exception. Now, granted, all these ITU athletes are proving that they are changing the game, but it's not just a sure thing that they go from short course to long course and decimate the field. I think Alistair Brownlee has the potential to do that, but we don't yet know if it's going to happen. I think I've got some ideas on can it, will it, should it? What are Vegas odds? So the race that Alistair Brownlee is going to make his Ironman debut at is Ironman Cork in Ireland on June 23rd. Now, I think that he is the hands down favorite. He is seeded first, and there isn't really anyone that I look at and say like they can even toe the line with Alistair Brownlee. Second seed, Victor Del Corral, he's never raced head to head, and he hasn't really been a front runner, a real competitor when going up against the ultra elite athletes out there. Third seed, Marino van Hohenacker, has been a very elite, like top 5 in the world kind of full distance athlete, and he has won in 2017, 2018, but he's showing his age and just not quite as dominant as he used to be. Fourth seed, Philip Graves, again, just typically not at the front of the field. Fifth seed, Justin Metzler, is the only person in the top 5 to have gone toe-to-toe with Alistair Brownlee. He did so in Liuzhou 2 years ago, finishing 5th, but more than 10 minutes in behind Alistair. So if I had to pick, I'd say Alistair is probably, as long as he's healthy, and I imagine that he is because he announced that he'd be racing Ironman Cork just recently, so it's not like he's got months and months of training and potentially building up injuries. I imagine he's announcing this race because he's healthy, he's ready to go, and if that's the Alistair that we see, I think that he's going to win. But ITU racing and even half Ironman distance racing is a very, very different game than full Ironman distance racing. Sprint, all out, right from the gun. Olympic, basically all out, right from the gun. What I've been told by pros who have competed in full and half Ironman distance races for 15 years or so is that 10-15 years ago a half Ironman used to still be paced, whereas the sprint and Olympic, just go. Now, because the ITU athletes have come into half Ironman, it's not really paced anymore at all. It's just, again, go. Just down a little bit of a notch, like people aren't passing out at the finish line. Ironman, however, is a moderated effort level. If you look at, say, Jan Frodeno running his way to victory at Kona versus Jan Frodeno running his way to a gold medal, it's a very different effort level. It's a very paced, moderated effort level. So let's look at Alistair Brownlee, swim, bike, run. For starters, he's got it all. He's an excellent swimmer, excellent cyclist, excellent runner. Swimming, he was in ITU coming out front pack typically, race after race after race, like top 5. Now, if we look at all of the races that he's done in half Ironman distance racing, he has been coming out either first, second in the water, at worst, 5th out of the water at half Ironman Worlds, but at that point, he's going up against, again, former ITU athletes. So the big thing in Ironman distance racing is, can you be in the front pack to avoid having to work hard to get up to that front pack on the bike? Alistair Brownlee is going to be coming out front pack, if not front of the front pack out of the swim. Now the bike, this is where a lot of ITU athletes tend to struggle. Javier Gomez stepped up to the half Ironman distance, and sure, he's a strong biker, but when it comes to being absolute world class, we saw Javier Gomez not take a single turn at the front at half Ironman South Africa at the World Championships in 2018. Not one turn at the front. So he's not as strong because he spent a lifetime in drafting packs, not having to work and pound at the front for hours on end. This is also why Jan Frodeno is so good at Ironman distance racing, because he is a very strong cyclist. He's not one of the uber bikers out there, but he would be like just barely underneath the uber bikers. So he is coming out fairly close to the front, not having to burn a ton of matches, running people down. Alistair, however, is probably even stronger. We look at his half Ironman distance debut at St. George 2 years ago. He biked with Cam Wurf, with Lionel Sanders, with Sebastian Kienle. Not biked with them, biked faster than all but Lionel Sanders. Dubai, he put out the fastest bike split. Liuzhou, he put out the fastest bike split. Half Ironman World Championships 2018, he put out the 4th fastest bike split, but it was only the 4th fastest by 20 seconds. Marbella earlier this year, he was way off the front of the bike, but he had a mechanical. So that time isn't really indicative of his talent on the bike. He is probably one of the strongest bikers in the half Ironman distance, which really just with time in the saddle ends up translating to the longer distance. So if he's coming out front pack in the swim, coming out probably at the front of the bike, it all comes down to the run. Can somebody run him down? In a field like we see at Ironman Cork, probably not. But is he going to be able to hold up? That's the big question with Alistair. He has a history of running-related injuries, and as we saw last year at the Half Ironman World Championships, he's probably a better runner than Jan Frodeno, but he wasn't able to show it because he hadn't been able to build up the run volume throughout the course of the year. And that to me is the biggest question with Alistair. Can he stay healthy? Well, he hasn't really proven that he can. He has proven to me that he has the talent to win in any distance race out there. I think that he might be the best triathlete that has ever been around, but his injury history has kind of held him back and made it hard for him to be just unbelievably dominant year after year after year at all distances. The guy's got 2 gold medals, so yes, he is an amazing athlete, but there is just this question mark on the full distance. So then that leads to the big question. Let's assume that he is going to win Ironman Cork, punch his ticket to Kona. Do I think that he could win Kona? First and foremost, apparently he doesn't like the heat, but he won a gold medal in Rio, he won Liuzhou, he won Dubai. St. George is a super tough race that apparently feels really hot as well, and he's winning in all of these hot weather conditions. So yes, he probably can win at Kona physiologically. He's also quite young. He's just 31 years old. This is probably even a little bit younger than it was when Jan Frodeno came in, so he has a lot of years to build up to it. Do I think that he is going to win this year? Not a lot of athletes end up going to Kona and winning outright, but he is likely going to be one of the only people that I think will be somebody that Patrick Lange should worry about. They're both going to be coming out front pack in the swim. If anything, Alistair might have a little bit of a lead. Alistair is probably going to actually gain a little bit of time on him on the bike, and then it's the run. And then we've got amazing runner, versus amazing runner. The big question mark in all this, like I said though, is can Alistair's body hold up to the pounding over and over and over? The training is brutal in ITU or Ironman distance racing, but that long running where you're running 42 kilometers and for the last 12 to 15 of it, you're running with bad form, that is tough on your body. A 10K race, absolutely brutal. The training for ITU, absolutely brutal. But it's those repetitions at bad form with the long distance stuff that ends up breaking bodies down, which is why we see a lot of the more built athletes, the Sebastian Kienleys, the Lionel Sanders, the Jan Frodeno's, the slightly bigger, more muscular athletes doing really, really well at the long distance. And can Alistair do it physiologically? Absolutely. Is his body going to let him? We have to wait and see. So there you go, Trainiacs. That is my take on Alistair Brownlee. This is going to be really fun to watch. And of course, we will talk about this, maybe even do a full video after he races Ironman Cork. So if you want to make sure that you get that notification, hit that subscribe button below. Later, Trainiacs.